Your brain is literally exhausting itself right now just by watching this. No, seriously. Well, most people cruise through their day on autopilot. Yours is running a full background analysis on every single thing that happens. Every conversation, every glance, every little moment that shouldn't bother you. And nobody told you that's why you're tired. Not because you're weak, not because something is wrong with you, but because your mind is doing more work than most people's ever will. Sound familiar? You finish a day that wasn't even that eventful. No gym, no big meetings, nothing dramatic, and yet you feel like you got hit by a bus. You need like 2 hours alone after hanging out with people. You sleep 8 hours and still wake up tired. Honestly, I used to think I was just bad at life, like everyone else was handling it fine, and I was somewhere just quietly drowning. But here's what I found out, and this genuinely changed how I see myself. There are very real, very specific psychological reasons this happens, and once you understand them, everything starts to make a different kind of sense. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing, and this one kind of blew my mind when I first came across it, your brain might literally be processing more than other people's, like not metaphorically, neurologically. A researcher named Elaine Aron identified something called high sensory processing sensitivity. It's found in roughly 15 to 20% of people, and what it basically means is your brain doesn't just take in information and move on. It sits with it, cross-references it, compares it to past experiences, reads between the lines, picks up on the weird energy in a room before anyone says a word, gets what was meant, not just what was said. Crazy, right? Here's the analogy that really made it click for me. Imagine two computers getting the same email. Computer A reads it, files it, done. Computer B reads it, then runs it through a language analysis, cross-checks the sender's previous messages, flags possible emotional undertones, drafts 3 different responses, saves all of it to active memory. Same email, completely different energy cost. That second computer, that's you. And here's the thing nobody says out loud. Processing power costs energy. So when you're exhausted after a day that wasn't even hard, you weren't doing nothing. Your brain was doing overtime. The reframe? You're not inefficient, you're thorough. And thorough people catch the stuff everyone else walks right past. The real work is just giving yourself the recovery time that matches your actual output, not the recovery time of someone whose brain is doing half the job yours is. Okay, moving on, and this one hits different if you're someone who tends to put other people first. It's called emotional labor, and most people who carry it the hardest, they don't even know they're doing it. Research shows that highly empathetic people don't just manage their own emotions, they absorb, process, and often quietly regulate the emotions of everyone around them. And unlike actual physical work, nobody sees this, nobody clocks you in, nobody goes, "Hey, thanks for silently keeping that dinner from becoming a disaster." You know that feeling when you leave a get-together and you're somehow more exhausted than the person who literally talked the whole time? Yeah, that's not a coincidence. You were working that entire time, just invisibly, monitoring the temperature in the room, smoothing things over before they got weird, picking up on who was upset and quietly adjusting the whole vibe. That's real labor. And when you bottle your own emotions to keep everyone else comfortable, psychology calls what builds up an emotional debt. And like any debt, it collects interest. So the next time you're exhausted after what looked like a chill evening, say it to yourself. Actually say it. I was working back there. That was real. And I'm allowed to be tired. That's not dramatic. That's just honest. Here's the third one. And to be fair, this is the one I personally feel the most guilty about. Decision fatigue stacked on top of rumination. It's a brutal combo. So here's how it works. Psychology shows that every single decision you make pulls from a limited daily pool of mental energy. What to eat, how to reply to that text, whether you said the right thing in that meeting 3 days ago. All of it costs something. And for those of us who revisit decisions long after they're made, that cost doubles, because you're not just deciding once, you're relitigating it over and over, in the shower, before bed, on your commute. Rumination, that loop of replaying conversations, moments, choices, is one of the most energy-draining things your brain can do. It's like having 20 browser tabs open and then being genuinely confused why everything's running slow. You're not losing it, you're just overloaded. And honestly, here's the part I want you to hold on to here. People who ruminate aren't doing it because they're neurotic. They're doing it because they care about getting it right, about not hurting people, about being good. That's not a flaw. That's actually kind of beautiful. The trick is giving those thoughts somewhere to land instead of just letting them spin. Journaling works, talking it out works, even just setting a timer and saying, I'll think about this for 10 minutes and then I'm done works. You don't have to stop thinking, you just need a finish line. All right, number 4, and this is the one most people don't see coming. Your exhaustion might not be about what you're doing, it might be about how far what you're doing is from what you actually care about. Research in values-based psychology has a term for this: values conflict. It's that low-grade background hum of wrongness that happens when the life you're living day to day doesn't line up with what actually matters to you deep down. And here's the thing about that hum: it never fully turns off. It just sits there, running in the background, quietly draining you. Picture someone who's creative, who craves real human connection, who genuinely lights up when they're making something or talking about something that matters, and they spend 8 hours a day in a job that needs none of that. On paper, not a hard day. In reality, they come home hollowed out in a way that's almost impossible to explain to someone who hasn't felt it. That's not laziness, that's a soul running on the wrong fuel. And I know that might sound a little dramatic, but I think it's actually the most accurate way to put it. Here's the good news, though. Your exhaustion, when it comes from this place, is actually pointing you somewhere. It's your mind waving a flag going, hey, this isn't quite it. That's not a crisis, that's clarity. And quiet, uncomfortable clarity is always worth paying attention to. Last one, number 5, and this might be the most important one. You might be mentally drained because you've been carrying unmet emotional needs for years without ever naming them. Psychology is pretty clear on this. Unaddressed emotional needs don't just disappear because you ignore them. Belonging, safety, autonomy, feeling seen, when those go unmet, they don't go away, they just sit there in the background, generating low-level stress constantly. And a lot of people who say, I'm always tired, what they're really doing is functioning on top of a deficit that's been there so long, they've stopped noticing it. Most of us were never taught to identify what we need. We were taught to cope, to adapt, to just be fine. And coping, when it's your permanent default mode, exhausting. It's like walking every single day with a stone in your shoe. You adjust to it, you stop consciously noticing it, but your body is paying for it with every step. So here's the small, kind of radical thing I want to leave you with on this one. Start asking yourself genuinely, without judgment, what do I actually need right now? Not what should you be grateful for, not what you're supposed to want, just what do you need? That question alone, asked regularly and honestly, can start to loosen something that's been gripped tight for a really long time. So here's where all of it lands. Mental exhaustion, for a lot of people, isn't a discipline problem. It's not a productivity problem. It's a depth problem. It's what happens when someone who processes deeply, feels things strongly, thinks carefully, and genuinely cares gets placed in a world mostly built for people who do none of those things, and gets told to keep up without complaint. You've been keeping up, often brilliantly, on a fraction of the acknowledgement and rest you actually need, and that deserves to be said out loud, not as pity, just as fact. Everything we talked about today, the way you process the world, the invisible work you do for other people, the way your brain loops because it cares, the quiet wrongness of living out of alignment, the needs you've learned to silence, none of that is a character flaw. It's the architecture of a very particular kind of mind, your mind. And the most important thing you can do with that isn't to fix it, it's to finally understand it. You don't have to become someone different, you just have to start building a life that was actually designed for who you already are. If something in this video hit differently, if you felt something shift, even slightly, subscribe, because that's what this channel is for, giving words to the things you've always felt but could never quite explain. There's more here for you, and you've always deserved to understand yourself this clearly.